Hi, I'm Jimmy. In this video, we're going to look quickly at what's been happening with oil and what's been causing all the crazy volatility in oil prices over the past few days especially, but even over the past few months. Okay, so for those of us who didn't get a chance to see oil prices yesterday, well, for the first time ever, oil prices went negative. And as we can imagine, this took a lot of people off guard since, well, it's never actually happened before. But I do think it's very important for us to realize what's really going on with the price of oil and how oil prices could possibly go negative like this. Okay, so I'm sure we've all heard people say things like, oil futures are up $2 or down $2, or in the case of yesterday, oil futures went negative for the first time ever. But the most important word for all of us to recognize in those statements is the word futures, because oil isn't traded, let's say, the same way as a stock is traded. Sure, when we look at a chart like this, it might seem like this is the exact price of oil over this entire period of time. And that is sort of true. And even when we switch over to a long-term chart, well, this chart goes all the way back to 1984. And we can see that this drop into negative territory was truly unprecedented. This is the first one of its kind. And just so we're all on the same page, WTI has been the benchmark price for American oil for a long time. Much like Brent oil generally represents global oil, WTI has represented American oil. So just so we're on the same page, WTI is oil that comes out of West Texas. But what's interesting about this is that when investors talk about the price of oil, generally they're referring to the price of a futures contract. And oil futures are monthly contracts that, very importantly, have expiration dates. Today is the expiration date for the May 2020 contract. So our question is, what happens to oil prices after the May contract expires today? Well, just like WTI does every month through this entire time period, the generic oil price that we see on Yahoo Finance or CNBC or Bloomberg or whatever it is will roll forward to the next month, which is June of 2020. Now we might ask, how do June oil prices look right now? And as we can see on this one-year chart, for the June contract specifically, well, oil is down for sure, and it should be, but as we can see, it's trading at about $20 per barrel. So I'm not sure what's going to happen today with the price of oil, but I do know that tomorrow, the price of oil that we see online or on TV or whatever it is going to reflect the June contract, and the May contract will no longer exist. So when we switch back here to the one-year WTI oil price, well, it's important for us to recognize that this chart is really a series of future contracts that expired and rolled into the next one. So it's a series of contracts that have been broken up. You just never really see it. We never really get to look at it because it appears to be one streaming price, even though it continues to change from contract to contract. Okay, so let's imagine that on Wednesday, tomorrow, the price of oil does snap back, and let's imagine that nothing crazy happens today, the day we're releasing this video, and oil's still at about the $20 range. Well, that doesn't necessarily explain why the drop yesterday in the May contracts were as drastic as they were. And there's actually a few contributing factors to this that sort of explain the craziness of this perfect storm for oil prices. So first is tied to traders. So like I said before, oil is consisting of a whole bunch of contracts. Oftentimes, commodities traders get involved in a single contract and they don't actually want the oil. They're just trading it. This is a financial transaction for them. They don't want the oil. So as expiration comes up on them, in the case of yesterday when oil went nuts, well, it was 2 days away. As that approaches, generally what they do is they get out and they roll into the next contract. What happens when you get a whole bunch of commodities traders jumping out at the same time? Well, supply and demand kicks in and the price of crude oil begins to go down, in this case, way down. Now, clearly, the change of contracts isn't the only thing happening. Thanks to the coronavirus, demand for oil is virtually at a standstill. Gasoline sales are way down. Jet fuel sales are way down. Manufacturing is way down. They use a lot of oil. And as we know, on top of all of that, Saudi Arabia and Russia have been going at it a decent amount, and when they're going at it in this spat over production, they end up producing more. So this really has been the perfect storm for oil prices. So much so that it's being reported that storage facilities for oil are getting maxed out. And since there's no real demand, this is becoming a real problem for oil producers. So it's really difficult to tell how this is going to shake out. We are truly in unprecedented times. If we're currently looking at energy stocks, I think it makes sense to try to focus on energy companies that have enough cash to outlast the coronavirus. And it's impossible to know how long the virus is actually going to suppress demand, so we need to find companies that can weather that storm. The other issue is a lot of these companies in the energy industry don't have a ton of cash. If we think it makes sense for me to do some research to see if I could put together a list of maybe top 3 or top 5 energy stocks or something along those lines, please let me know in the comments below. That could be an interesting amount of research to do during these crazy times. And if you happen to know any energy companies, maybe some storage energy companies, please let me know those in the comments below as well. Another choice for us is to simply go out and pick an energy ETF and then sit and wait for this time to pass. Now, I actually did a video recently where I look at what's better, stocks or ETFs. And if you're curious, that could be a good next video for you to watch. There's a link right here and there's a link in the description below. And I want to thank you so much for sticking with me all the way to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.